Why the best years of our lives is brilliant. This is my review. The Best Years of Our Lives is a masterpiece in every cinematic way. The story-driven plot, the acting, the camera work, everything about this post-World War II era movie is absolutely magnificent. Why? I'll tell you why. The importance of story and characters. Now in films, story and characters are the primary focus, at least they should be, in a movie, and thus they should be handled correctly.
Martha! Why did you say that name?
It's his mother's name!
Looking at you, DC. The characters are meant to stand out to the audience. Whether we laugh with them or cry, we're supposed to feel something for the characters on screen. A cake is only as good as the icing on top. Character and story are inseparable, and most films thrive or die depending on these two elements. Usually, of course, there are exceptions, but these are the most important elements in my opinion. A film, of course, needs the proper execution of technical and artistic aspects, such as editing, cinematography, directing, and acting. But at the core base of a film is the writing. It all begins with the script, the writer and director, and what they want to convey. What type of story and characters they want to show to an audience on screen. Every film has a message, and film is a medium to tell a story. Characters in a story are a means to express an idea, or ideas, and make an audience understand where they are coming from so that the point gets across properly. Now, what does this all have to do with the film, you may ask? Well, as mentioned, character and story are important, as if I haven't stressed that enough, and The Best Years of Our Lives balances these two critical points like an evenly weighted scale. The plot. The Best Years of Our Lives is about three servicemen returning to a hometown each of them coincidentally have in common. Each of them long to return home, and of course, the inevitable question lingers in each of their minds about how they will be received by their friends and families. Fred worries about seeing his wife again, whom he was married to for only 20 days before going off to war. Al Stevenson, now an old gray-haired man, anxiously ponders meeting his children, whom he left at a presumably young age. Homer puts aside his worries with jokes and banter about his hooks as he inwardly dreads coming back to a fiancée that he left behind.
Boy, you ought to see me open a bottle of beer.
Ultimately, each man dreads what kinds of changes have happened since they last stepped foot in their small town, and what kind of new life as civilians awaits them. Characters and story should complement each other. This movie does a fantastic job in keeping each storyline of the ex-servicemen entertaining, heartbreaking, and completely enthralling as we see into their personal lives, each man coming across another's path along the way. The central character is supposedly the young bombardier Fred because the movie is mostly centered around him, but basically every main character of the cast has their own moment to shine. We see Al Stevenson's wife, Millie, sticking by her husband's side as he integrates back into society. There's Homer's fiancée Wilma, who quickly recovers from the shocking reality of Homer's hooks and desperately tries to get him to realize that she loves him with or without hands. Even the selfish, egocentric character of Fred's wife, Marie, who we readily see as an unhappily unlikable woman seeking a rich social life she can't possibly afford. Even she is layered and rounded as well as any of the other characters in the film. One trick for figuring out if a character in a movie is important at all is that if you can remove that character from the film and they don't affect the dynamic storyline at all, then that character does not need to be there. And guess what? That's poor writing. A major character, such as a mentor, a companion, an ally, or even a love interest, you want these characters to add to the story through their personalities, not to just be part of the background, or just a pretty face, only then to set them up for one act that suddenly makes them all of a sudden important, or just not even making them important at all and leaving them to be window dressing. Most movies have these extraneous characters, but with The Best Years of Our Lives, each major character is pivotal and pretty much vital to the storytelling process. The way they intersect and cross each other's paths, the way they interact with each other, their dialogue. Each character felt real and important.
Oh, my that gate back. I'll be any day left. You want... Hey, Millie, Peggy, step up and meet the gang. This is Homer, this is Fred.
Each character served their purpose without their actions feeling forced by the script. The dialogue and delivery felt natural for the most part, believable for a post-World War II era.
Oh, I hear you got a new neon sign, huh? Good for you, huh? Now the party can really get started, eh?
The situations weren't obligatory, nor were their actions arbitrary, from what I remember.
Rob, haven't you any homework?
Oh, sure. Good night, Dad.
There are some moments that are cheesy, I do have to say that.
I know what to say, Homer. I love you, and I'm never going to leave you. Never.
The situations weren't obligatory, nor were their actions arbitrary. The last thing you want in a dramatic movie like The Best Years is badly developed characters. At the end of the movie, the characters are supposed to have learned something, and in this way, the audience learns with them too. Growth and change in a character are pivotal to good storytelling. You can look at this in the same way as gardening. Yeah, sure. You wouldn't go plant an apple seed just to watch it not grow, right? You would want to see the seed grow into a sprout and then a sapling and then into a tree, of which you would want to taste the fruits of the tree because you have dedicated your time and effort in maintaining the plant in hopes that you would get some good tasty apples. You like them apples? You see, the audience puts time and effort into a movie, so to speak. They pay to see it, and they sit in the dark for an hour or two, investing their time into what is being portrayed on a blinky screen that projects 24 still frames per second. And the characters in the movie on the screen are what they are drawn to. So going back to characters learning a lesson. The Best Years gives a few lessons through the characters as each one of their storylines are wrapped up. One of the three main ideas the movie presents is that not all wounds are physical. Some cut deeper than shrapnel. Some scar worse than just burns. Most servicemen sacrifice many things to serve. Some of them sacrifice time away from their families. Some of them lose a limb. Fred, Al, and Homer all deal with this internally as they learn that some fights just can't be fought alone, and that they need friends and families to help them through their own personal battles. Homer has to accept that Wilma genuinely loves him, and that her love is something more than just superficial infatuation.
All I know is I was in love with you when you left, and I'm in love with you now. Other things may have changed, but that hasn't.
Al has to deal with the fact that his children have all grown up.
Hey, frightening.
What is?
Youth.
Didn't you run across any young people in the army?
No, they're all old men like me.
Fred realizes that his love at first sight marriage really wasn't what he thought it initially was, and in fact has deteriorated the moment he left for the war.
I've given you every chance to make something of yourself. I gave up my own job when you asked me. I gave up the best years of my life, and what have you done? You flopped. Couldn't even hold that job in the drugstore. So I'm going back to work for myself, and that means I'm going to live for myself, too.
And for something back in the 40s, this movie wraps up each man's storyline fairly well, like a big red bow on top at Christmas time on your favorite present. The acting and the director. The Best Years has drawn many critical eyes from many people in its day, and even years afterwards. One of the supporting actors, Harold Russell, is only one of 2 non-professional actors in history to gain an Academy Award.
You want to see how the hooks work? You want to see the freak? All right, I'll show you. Take a good look.
I didn't know anything.
This movie has won more awards than you could count on one hand. Sorry, Harold, but I would have to say the acting is one of the most crucial strengths this film possesses. Each character isn't hammed to death, lines aren't monotonously delivered, kind of.
Say, Mr. Stevenson, I don't know how to begin to thank you.
Don't try.
Okay, so there are parts, but It's the overall picture of it. Each word feels like it is being spoken by a living, breathing human that has actual emotions. The interactions, as I've harped on about already, are in fact ingenious considering how the story is woven to accommodate all three men and their families and their friends. Even for the smaller roles in the cast, their acting was pretty good. The character of Virginia Mayo she presented seemed thoroughly spoiled and like a complete and utter child.
What are you gonna do?
Going away.
Where?
As far away from Boone City as I can get.
That's a good idea. You'll get a good job someplace else. There are drugstores everywhere.
Homer's Uncle Butch, portrayed by Hoagie Carmichael, seemed like an actual uncle that cared for his nephew.
Give them time, kid. They'll catch on. You know your folks will get used to you, and you'll get used to them. Then everything will settle down nicely.
There are a lot of familial ties in this movie, and it's amazing to see how each of them interact as well as they do in the best years of our lives. And that's something you really have to give them credit for. Each main and supporting actor and actress did a beautiful job, but really, I think the directing had a bit of a hand in what made the acting so good. The director was William Wyler, also known for other famous movie classics like Ben-Hur and Roman Holiday. But for this movie, Wyler does an exceedingly tremendous job. You, the viewer, anticipate each soldier's return to their families, wondering how and what their reactions will be. You worry about the men's lives as they struggle adjusting to civilian life. You not only sympathize with them, but you empathize with them as well. Wyler paints this simple yet magnificent tale that interweaves these three homesick veterans making their way through a new life and new challenges they have to face. You, the audience, journey with them. Believe it or not, you actually have a sense of secondhand experience just watching the actions on screen unfold as you are twisted and blown from one point to another, from 1 minute to another, from 1 hour to another, eager eyes awaiting what will happen in the next 5 minutes, the next 10, and the next 20, and so on. Seeking to make a film that would fully encompass and capture the mood of the nation after the Second World War, The Best Years of Our Lives was born. The movie was granted an Academy Award for Best Director and Best Picture, for obvious reasons of which I will explain next. The cinematography. This movie has some really great camera work that I haven't previously seen in most black and white films. It's innovative and simply complicated, the way Wyler sets up his shots and frames the characters. Most times it's pretty decent, but at some points the shot becomes absolutely brilliant. For example, there is one scene where two women are talking in a powder room full of mirrors, alright? Full of mirrors. And you think you're looking at them straight on, but in fact the camera is pointed at a mirror vanity. And you are staring at the reflection in the mirror. The way the entire scene is set up is magnificent, from the shot being a one take to the careful and deliberate moments that are made so that the camera isn't seen in any of the mirrors. Of course, you do see an arm, but that's not the point. The angles of shots do well in complementing the actions of the characters, portraying them when they feel sorrowful, or paralleling their moments of doubt or helplessness. And the emotion really comes out of that angle. William Wyler knows how to direct a camera. And this really makes you part of the movie and immerses you into the drama unfolding. The subtle back and forth dollying shots, moving in and out from the actors. This movie has some of the best cinematography I have seen in a film from the 40s. And it is very refreshing to see creativity and art welded together in a masterpiece. That is this movie. And to complement the title, I believe that this film is and will be one of the best movies of all time.